Good evening. Welcome in, Mizzou fans, to State of the Tigers, our weekly show here on PowerMizzou.com, talking Mizzou sports. That means basketball this time of year. Drew King to my left, maybe my right. I don't know what your screen looks like. He's on the other side. I'm
Okay.
Gabe. We'll get talking Mizzou shortly. Want to remind you every week our Monday night shows brought to you by our friend and our insurance agent, James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves. I was on the radio with James this morning. I think he's got a media career brewing here. He's moonlighting as a media guy. He's doing pretty well. So before he bails on insurance to go full-time shock jock radio, get in touch with James at 314-961-4800. You can check him out at carltoninsurance.net. Mention that you heard about him on Power Mizzou, and he's going to give you a quote and donate $25 to Mizzou's NIL fund. And by the way, I don't think James is actually leaving the business, so you have time, but get it done as quickly as you can. Drew, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. I had no idea about James Carlton's budding media career. We got to get him on the pod.
Yeah, he was on with Gerard and I a couple times. We'll have to have him on during basketball season.
Okay.
I'll get James on the show here with us in the next couple of weeks sometime. But like, beware, when he was on with Gerard and I, like, most people liked him way better than they liked either one of us. So
understandable. So
I agree. I mean, I like James better than I like Gerard or me, so it's fair. All right, so want to ask you guys, comment, like, subscribe, do all of those things that help the channel reach more people. We will certainly, Billy will be putting your comments up in the chat throughout the show. If you've got any questions, ask those. We'll try to get to those throughout the show. Generally, try to save those for the second half after we get through our predetermined rundown. Drew, top 25 rankings are out. Missouri is 20 in the AP, 21 in the coaches poll. That seems about right to me.
Yeah, I think so. You could make an argument maybe a little bit higher, but you could also make an argument a little bit lower. So I think that 20 is a pretty good spot. By the way, Gabe, I've got good news and bad news for you.
Okay.
And really for everybody. The bad news is,
I think I know what the bad news is.
Yeah, I went across the street to get some party poppers, and not only were they sold out, but Party City is out of business. So there aren't any more party poppers across the street. Apparently, that's the only place you can get them in the city of Columbia. I have looked high and low for these party poppers, so we don't have any tonight. The good news is, I ordered some. They're on the way. We'll pop 2 next show, but no party poppers tonight. Sorry, folks.
That is amazing that there is only one place that sells party poppers in the entire city of Columbia. Well, I would not have guessed that.
They've got like confetti cannons, but those sound a lot more messier than what I was using.
I mean, I would be here for anything that involves the word cannon on the live show. Honestly, I would feel like we would set a viewership record for that.
I'm not trying to blow a hole through my ceiling, Gabe. Okay.
All right, look, if you guys want Drew to shoot off a confetti cannon on the live show, comment, like, tell everybody. Please. If we can get to 500 people, I'm going to make Drew shoot off a confetti cannon in his kitchen. So, all right. So anyway, back to the top 25. Like you said, Missouri 20th, 20th in the AP, 10 SEC teams in the top 25. Like, this is getting out of hand, man.
I mean, is it though? Like, I feel like
no, I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it feels kind of justified. Like, yeah, the SEC probably does have 10 teams that are 20 in the top 25, right? Like, I don't know that you could have held Vanderbilt back any longer after beating Tennessee and Kentucky in back-to-back weeks. Like, that's a top 25 team to me. And at the same time, like, in my poll that came out today, in my ballot for the SEC poll, like, I had the same 9 teams in front of them. So yeah, like, I think that it's very real that there's 10 teams in the top 25 like that. I don't think it's out of hand. I think it's dead serious.
Yeah. And I mean, defending champion UConn, number 25, that it feels like we're kind of settled into where we're just kind of starting to reshuffle mostly the same teams. It's hard to rise too much or fall too much. I mean, Ole Miss falls 7 spots after going 0-2, but again, if you just go 1-1 every week, like you're going to be a ranked team pretty much the rest of the year because there aren't really any bad losses. I mean, Missouri lost to Texas, and I think I saw Texas up to like 32 in the net now.
Sheesh. Yeah, like these are all quad 1, quad 2 games moving forward, aside from South Carolina. So I think that the rest of the country is starting to realize, like, oh, this is kind of head and shoulders above some of the other conferences in the country, I think.
For sure. Real quick, Mitchell does want to know in the chat, how much does the confetti cannon cost?
Y'all think I was pricing confetti cannons? Let me go look. Hang on.
Look, this is important stuff, man. This is like I want a cannon on our show.
No, I feel you. Okay, I'm on it.
If they can shoot one off at Furrow Field when they score a touchdown, we can shoot one off for the Power Mizzou live show. I feel like.
I'm seeing one at Amazon. Well, actually, this is a 6-pack for $17.
See, so it's not like anything that's going to do a lot of damage. I mean, they aren't selling big firearms for $3 a piece, man.
That's true. Yeah, and I'm seeing Walmart has a 12-inch confetti popper for less than $3.
Okay. So,
but
look,
that's 12 inches, right? The one that I was using was probably half an inch.
Look, size doesn't matter, dear. That's what I've heard. So, anyhow, before we get completely off the rails here on the show, I did the SEC in tiers this morning, and we try to do this every now and then. Like, do we agree Auburn is in its own tier? Do you disagree with that?
No, not at all. It's
okay,
Auburn and everyone else.
Tier 2, I had a hard time. Like, I feel like Alabama and Tennessee are probably maybe a half step above everybody else, but then like there's 5 more teams I felt like I could put in that same tier with that, because like Ole Miss has beaten Alabama, Florida's beaten Tennessee, Vandy's beaten Tennessee. Like I feel like if I put Vandy and Alabama in tier 2 by themselves, I'm doing it more on what I think they are than anything that's necessarily happened on the court.
Yeah, Tennessee specifically, I think, is kind of the problem child there, because at 4-3, you really are more in that middle of the pack group where you're tied with Vanderbilt and Mississippi State and those teams. I would put probably Florida a kind of a half step ahead with Bama and Tennessee, just because I think that they're top 10 team in the country as well. But I'm with you.
Why do you put Florida in that group if you don't put Missouri in it?
Well, exactly. Like that's another one where I'm like, I think that they're just a little bit better. Not necessarily that they've shown it, but just they've kind of beaten, like you said, Tennessee. They beat Texas. They beat Georgia. So I don't know. Like, it's a good question,
that's the problem. I mean, that's the problem you run into in this league, right? I started doing tier 2, and I'm like, Alabama and Tennessee, but then I'm like, but Florida should be in there. And if Florida's in there, Missouri should be in there. And by the way, I think Mississippi State and Texas A&M are pretty good teams. And how do I put those teams in and not put Kentucky in?
Yeah.
So it's just like I seriously think 2 through. And I don't know if I want to throw Ole Miss in that group or not, because Ole Miss just lost. They beat Bama, but then they lost 3 straight. They lost to Mississippi State. They lost to Missouri, and they lost to Texas A&M. So they've kind of played their way into tier 3 in the last couple of weeks, in my opinion. But that 2 through 8, man, I don't know how to split them up.
Yeah, I told you for the last 2 weeks when I'm doing my SEC poll, like somebody has to be ranked 9th, and I don't always know who it's gonna be, but I know whoever it is has a right to be upset, because could you realistically say that Texas and Vanderbilt are worse than, say, Texas A&M? Probably, but like I think that they're right there. Texas just beat Texas A&M, right? And Vanderbilt's beaten teams that I would say are probably above Texas A&M. So, like you said, it's all kind of a mishmash right now, and we're not quite to the halfway point of the season, but um, right now there's just not a lot of separation between anybody.
And I'm not sure there's going to be, like, I think the difference between finishing third and getting a double bye and finishing, I don't know, 10th and wearing road uniforms in your first game is probably 2 games.
Yeah.
You know? So it's going to be interesting to see all the tiebreakers and how they break everything at the end of the year. Andrew Kessel trying to get in shape to play. I don't know. Your picture looks like you're a relatively fit guy, Andrew, but I don't know, man. I would want to play in more of a half court. I would want to play in Buzz Williams' system more than, say, Nate Oates' system.
Andrew should come out to the Arc with Gerard and I, and we'll get him in shape.
There you go. Get him on that Peyton Marshall fitness program that Dennis Gates has been running. The other thing I wanted to do before we kind of go to everybody's questions and stuff is somebody had asked me last week, and we're going to start this on the player level because that's what they had asked me, and I don't remember exactly what my answer is, so it might be different now than it was then. But I want to break the roster into better than you thought they were going to be, about what you thought they were going to be, and maybe not as good as you thought they were going to be. And just, so far with the understanding that, hey, things can change and all that, but we'll just break the roster and I'll go first to give you a second to kind of look at it. I know in the better than I expected category, I know I had Anthony Robinson. I know I had Trent Pierce. And I know I had Caleb Grill. And T.O. Barrett, to me, has to be in that group. Those are the 4 guys that I would say Missouri's gotten more out of than I thought it was going to get out of. Is your group the same? Is there anybody that you'd put in there that I didn't?
No, I think that those 4 are probably the same ones I would go with. And really, I would say Caleb Grill is the one who has taken the team to a different level than maybe I was expecting, right? For him to, I'm going to write my column for Thursday, and I think the first section is just going to be like, is Caleb Grill the best shooter in the country? Because I think he's got a case that you can make that he is. So I certainly wasn't expecting that out of him this year, especially coming off the injury. So, yeah.
I mean, I wasn't even expecting it like 3 or 4 games into the season.
Yeah.
We were still having that conversation of like, where's this player they've told us about? And then all of a sudden he showed up and he hasn't left. All right. So we agree on that tier 1. The next thing was, basically played to the expectation level you thought. And I'm going to let you go first here and then see where we differ.
I would say Mark Mitchell and Tamar Bates are about the same level as we thought. We knew that Tamar was going to be kind of a secondary scorer, leader on the team, and then Mark Mitchell was going to kind of be the guy on defense and take on a bigger role offensively and kind of work through, kind of the struggles that come with that. And I think both guys have been about what Mizzou was expecting coming in.
One omission, by the way, on the better than I expected list, I should absolutely have put Josh Gray there. Josh Gray's been a much better player for this team than I thought he was going to be. Is that the same with you, or would you put him in the more they've gotten about what you thought?
I'll put him in the about what I thought category, like, because he's not playing like a huge role for them, right? But he's doing the little things for him, right? He's rebounding at the clip that he's been doing his whole career. It's just that he's playing a little bit more minutes now. So, like he's not like a superstar by any means, right? And he's not making free throws. He's not making a whole lot of layups, but he's getting to the glass and he's helping protect the rim. So, and that's kind of what I expected from him.
Yeah, I just didn't expect him to be as big a factor as he has been. I just didn't think he was a guy that sometimes you're going to get 25 minutes out of. So the about what you expected, I had Bates and Mitchell there as well. The other guys I had in there was Marcus Allen because he could go in better than you expected, but we both said before the year who's going to play more than people think, Marcus Allen. So I feel like we're right on that one. And then the other guy I had in about what I expected. Well, there were two, I think, Jacob Cruz. And, I think some people might say, well, he's been a little underwhelmed. I don't know. I just thought making the leap from Tennessee Martin, I thought he would be a better shooter probably. But as far as that, even on Saturday, he was kind of getting buried at halftime by some people. And then he made two really big shots when that game was still in doubt for Missouri. He handled the ball better than he has. He's got a role on this team, which is about what I expected out of him.
Yeah, so I would still put him in the underwhelming category solely because the shot isn't falling consistently. And when I went to go talk to all the transfers this summer, Gabe, I asked each one of them, who's the best shooter if you can't name yourself that's on the team? And every single one of them said Jacob Cruz. So we really haven't seen that guy yet. And obviously, like everyone said, Caleb Grill's right behind him. So I'm still waiting to see if Jacob Cruz can get back on a hot streak, close out the year strong from outside. But you're right. He's still filling a role for them. He's had some big moments. So he's not a complete bust of a transfer, but right. I was expecting him to be a little bit better as a floor spacer.
And then I think I had Peyton Marshall in the about what I expected category. Yeah. Is that where you would put him? Or
I think so. Him and Marcus Allen. That's the thing is because I know we're going to get to the next category, which is underwhelming. And some people might have Honor Boateng there, but with these freshmen, you really just never know. And so I think with Marcus Allen and with Peyton Marshall, for them to get on the court with as many veterans as this team has, that's a pretty big accomplishment. So while it hasn't been a huge impact, I think that it's still about what you expect when you're brand new to the SEC.
Yeah, in the underwhelming category, I mean, I do have Honor Boateng there just because I thought he'd play. And he really isn't playing at this point in time. And then, and this may change as we go. For right now, I had Tony Perkins in that category, which I hesitated because he's had a few games. That's not meant as an insult. I don't know. I thought there was maybe another level that I don't think we've consistently seen yet. That may be certainly because of health, but whatever it is, I've got him in this category. And then I don't know, Aiden Shaw. I kind of it doesn't surprise me that his minutes have dwindled, but I guess based on the fact that he's playing less than he did either of the last 2 years, I guess probably has to go in this category.
Yeah. So with Perkins, I think that my expectations were a little bit higher too, because he came in as an all Big Ten guy. And this year he's not going to be an all SEC guy unless he goes berserk down the stretch here. So I think I came in at least thinking he was going to be the starting point guard. And Ant Robinson kind of took that role away from him, partially due to the injury, but also partially because Perkins hasn't played to the same level that he was at last year. So, I think that it's fair to be a little underwhelmed by Perkins. And then, same with Shaw. It just hasn't played that much this year. And I couldn't tell you specifically why, other than there's just a ton of guys on this team. And he hasn't been horrible when he's out there. Right. He just hasn't been out there. So I'm not sure what to really make of that. The last guy we didn't really talk about, Gabe, and I'm not sure where to put him, is Marquez Warwick.
Yes. I don't know. I mean, at this point, it has to be underwhelming because he's kind of disappeared.
Yeah. So that's the thing is he's shooting 50, 40, and 82, not quite 90, but those are like still really good percentages. He's got an offensive rating in the 137, which is really, really high. That's the best on the team right now behind Caleb Grill. So like he's been effective when he's out there, but he's another guy who they've kind of cooled off on recently. And I don't know if that's because they're kind of worried about what he does defensively or if he doesn't rebound enough. But yeah, like at the same time, he's had some moments too, right? Like he's had some big games earlier in SEC play, even just a few weeks ago. So I wouldn't say I'm completely underwhelmed, but I was expecting kind of what he was doing earlier on to carry over farther into the season.
All right, so let's expand this to a team thing then, and just kind of we'll just do one thing each category. I'll let you start. Like, what's been better than you thought it was going to be?
It has to be the rebounding, right? Like for them to be bottom 5 in the country the past 2 years to now they're number 1 in defensive rebounding rate in the SEC. That's a gigantic turnaround. And I think you came into this year hoping that they could get to like average in the country. And they're pretty significantly above average. So I would say that's the first one for me.
Yeah. And you took that. So I'll take the other obvious one is it's just the fact that Dennis Gates has gone from a team that couldn't draw a foul to a team that draws a foul every time it crosses midcourt. And it is a legitimate advantage. I mean, obviously, you're not going to have the Ole Miss thing happen every game where you shoot 20 free throws more than the other team. But every game, they're going to the free throw line more than the other team. After 2 years of just watching a team going, dude, there's 3 minutes left and they've drawn 2 fouls because they refuse to go in the lane. And every time they do, they just fall down.
It was rough.
Nobody in particular there, but
no. Okay, one more for me on something that they're better at than I expected. It's just the 3-point shooting. They're making shots at a higher clip than the 2022-23 team, which I really didn't anticipate, especially because of kind of how cold they were in those first couple of games against Memphis and against Howard. I really didn't think they had the horses to take as many threes as they do. But Caleb Grill, Tamar Bates, Ant Robinson, Trent Pierce, Jacob Cruz at times, Marquez Work, like those guys are all having a pretty good year from deep. So that's been surprising for me.
All right, we'll drop down a level to kind of, this is what I thought we'd see. And this is a little bit of it's a very generic answer, but for me, it's just the balance. It's and combine that with Dennis. Now we talked on Saturday, he's down to basically an 8-man rotation, so he's kind of locked down his numbers, and you've got on any given day, I think this team has 6 guys who could score 15 points.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be a surprise. I mean, like Aiden Shaw or Josh Gray, sure, they could score 15, but that would be relatively out of the ordinary. I think the starting lineup and Caleb Grill, any of those guys can get 15, and it's not going to surprise you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like even Ant Robinson, Trent Pierce, like these guys are all very capable of putting up big numbers.
All right, how about you? Give me a that's gone how I thought it would.
How about the amount of turnovers they create, right? This is kind of the Dennis Gates way, is just they're going to create a lot of chaos on defense. They're going to play in the passing lanes really aggressively and get their hands on a lot of deflections. So they're number 5 in the country in steal rate right now, and that's about where they're going to be most years under Dennis Gates, I think.
Yeah. All right. Now the bad one, like what's worse? What do you look at and say, yeah, I thought it'd be better than that?
That's a good question. And I'm having a kind of a tough time. I mean, I think for some people it might be the free throw percentage, but I kind of predicted in my preseason article. I was like, this might be a team that shoots below 70%, but like, yeah, maybe we didn't think like for as much as they get to the free throw line that they were going to miss as many shots there as they do. I think that's maybe been surprising in a bad way.
All right, I've got one that it's not exactly worse than we expected because I think we knew what it was before the year, but I think it's the reason that, you know, this team maybe isn't getting the national attention that some fans wanted to. It's the schedule, man. It's like, on one hand, I understand why they did it this way. But on the other hand, this team has played 4 games away from its home arena. 5 maybe. I mean, you look, everybody else in the country is like 8, 9, 12. Like, I don't understand the refusal to get in one of these early season tournaments. And that does not mean you have to play the Maui Invitational and go play Purdue, North Carolina, and Illinois in the first 3 games of the year. But like, I don't know, getting one of these little rinky-dink things played in a ballroom in Hilton Head and get a couple neutral games on the record, maybe one against a team we've heard of. And I do think it helps your ratings.
So I can tell you the explanation I got on the non-conference.
I know, and I don't like it, but go ahead and give it to the people that haven't heard it.
Sure. So what I was told was the reason Mizzou doesn't play in those tournaments is because they already have the rivalry games with Illinois and Kansas. And some of these teams that play in the Maui Invitational or the Bahamas, whatever, they don't have necessarily those same rivalries. So that's what Mizzou is kind of counting as their big offensive.
I think that's a lie, and here's why.
Okay.
Here's why. Because the other teams that are in the top 25 or whatever, like they've played stronger schedules than Missouri. It's not, hey, we already play good teams, so we're not going to play. And I'm not asking, like I said, I'm not asking them to go play a top 10 schedule. Just play in one of these events. You know, they played UCF one year in one of them. That's cool. Like, just go play somebody on a neutral court so that when you get to, I mean, this is Jim Boeheim. Like, Jim Boeheim was famous for the first time he would play outside the Carrier Dome was the first Big East or ACC game. You know, like he wouldn't leave the state of New York until like January 12th. And so, again, I get a little bit why they did it because, hey, it's a brand new team. You're coming off 0-19. You got to have some confidence, all that. But if Missouri's not in one of these next year, I think they're doing a disservice to their fan base. And frankly, I think they're hurting their schedules.
So let me ask you this, Gabe. Like, did you feel like last season's schedule was any better where they were on the road against Minnesota and then a neutral site game with Seton Hall?
Yes.
Okay.
I like that better.
That's
I like
fair.
that better than playing, you know, especially in a year where your ACC SEC challenge game is at home. Now, if that's a road game, then that's one more game. Cool. But like because they went to Pitt last year in that event, right? And that's a road game. So next year, that game's going to be on the road. That's good. That gives you one. But again, go play in the thing on Thanksgiving in Kansas City. You know, I feel like it was a schedule that basically opened with a really cool game and then said, cool, we'll see you on December 9th. You know, I mean, like there was no buzz for this team because there was nothing to get interested in.
So
it wasn't the level of play.
Right. I think the reason behind that, Gabe, is because they really needed like the easiest path possible to get back to the NCAA tournament, right?
Right.
Because after what happened last year, you got to bounce back quick, right? And so I think that's why they went to the schedule that they did, right? Because they wanted an immediate bounce back. Moving forward, I would bet
that's the reason. It's not that they played Kansas and Illinois. It's, hey, we got to get back to the tournament, and we were awful last year.
Yes, but like in terms of like the non-conference tournaments, I don't know that we'll ever see them play in those. Maybe eventually, but It's going to be more like, let's go play Seton Hall or let's go play
Okay.
Minnesota on the road, right? So, yeah, like I think it's going to be more like that than it will be we're going to go play in Maui in November.
I mean, I like the early season tournaments because it feels like a big deal. Again,
Yeah.
even if it's not like they were in Atlantis one year and they played Louisville, but like that was not a loaded field. There's 3 or 4 good teams and 3 or 4 terrible teams. So it doesn't necessarily have to ramp up your strength of schedule hugely, but like if you play one of those games on a neutral site, well, then you're basically going up a quad level in whatever game you play, right?
Yeah.
Versus if you played that team at home. So I think and I do and look, I've said the same thing about football for a long time. I understand why they schedule the way they do. That doesn't mean I have to like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I think it would be a really cool thing for fans to be able to go to the whatever they call the arena in Kansas City now. It's not the Sprint Center anymore, but T-Mobile, I think.
T-Mobile,
to go there and see Missouri play a couple games in November, or to have like there are so many of these tournaments now, and again, they're not all Maui or the preseason NIT. That I hope that that's something he looks at and changes going forward. I would be disappointed if Missouri just sat those out of principle because they play Kansas and Illinois forever.
Are you sending me to Maui if they go?
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, I'm going to go too. We might share a room, but
perfect.
But yeah, we'll work it out, man. We gotta we gotta use all that YouTube money we're getting from people hanging out here with us every Monday night. So
I'll talk to Ryan Sharbaugh about it.
I've got you on my side now. You want him to go to Maui. So, all right. So, want to remind you real quick. This is kind of it's past the midway point of the show. I hope, because I'm not trying to go an hour and 20 minutes tonight. But want to remind you to get in touch with our buddy James Carlton, CarltonInsurance.net. You can give James' office a call at 314-961-4800. He's got a great team. There's always going to be somebody there during business hours. You're going to talk to an actual, real human being. Look, they just want to talk to you about your insurance needs. They're not going to give you the hard sell. They're going to give you a quote. And I can speak from personal experience. It is probably going to save you some money. So you should give that a shot. 314-961-4800. Again, tell him you heard about him on Power Mizzou here, and he's going to donate to Mizzou's NIL. So want to invite, and Billy, if you've seen any, bookmarked any, whatever, if we've got some questions in the chat, let's kind of hit those here for the next 10, 12 minutes. And Kyle wants to know 1 and 2 in the next 3 games. Is that a success?
I'd say, yeah, for sure. Like these are going to be 3 of your toughest remaining matchups in the regular season. So I think that pulling off 1 win and avoiding that 3-game win streak is going to be pretty important.
Yeah, I think that it's at Mississippi State, at Tennessee, home against A&M. I think I kind of ranked the remaining difficulty. At Tennessee was first. I think I had at Mississippi State third. And then at Texas A&M was in the top 5. So 3 of the 5 toughest games left, I think, are coming up. If you go 1 and 2, I think you feel pretty good. I said this somewhere else today. Tell me if you agree with this, Drew. Now, I know we think they're making the NCAA tournament. Like, all signs point to that. But I don't say a team is a lock until it's at the point where, like, the collapse is inconceivable, right? If they win either of these 2 road games, I will tell you that Missouri is an NCAA tournament lock.
I think that those would be, like, undeniable, like, you're a really good team wins.
Like 4th quad 1 win, and I mean
6 and 2, 6 and 3. Yeah.
At that point, you're going, okay, now we're playing for a seed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You asked me a good question earlier, which is like, which game is tougher between Mississippi State and Tennessee? And on paper, it's Tennessee, right? But you had some really interesting numbers in your column today.
Oh, Missouri's so bad in Starkville, man. Like double-digit losses 8 in a row, and they haven't scored more than 62 points in 7 of the 8. I mean, they just go down there. They've had 2 games in the 40s in Starkville. In the
Oh my
week.
gosh.
Yeah. And the funniest thing is the only game they've won in Starkville in the last 9, it was their first year in the SEC. They beat Mississippi State down there 78-36. Like, it is a guarantee that one team is going to be absolutely dreadful on offense, and maybe both.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because like both teams are not bad on offense. Like they're both pretty good.
So here's what I think. Like, this is a different Mississippi State team. You know, Mississippi State previously under Rick Stansbury, under Ben Howland, was like Conzo Martin basketball to another level. It was like, if you get to 55, we might not be able to beat you. We're just going to throw the ball at the rim. It's probably going to miss. We hope we can get it back and maybe get a foul. So I think a lot of that had to do with the way Mississippi State played. And then again, like, Missouri was awful under Kim Anderson, and Conzo liked to play games in the 50s. So I think I would be stunned if you see a game where both teams are in the 50s this time, but I don't know. It shocked me when it happened in Austin last week.
Yeah. So here's the one thing with Mississippi State for me, and I wrote this in my ballot today, is like they really haven't lost any bad games, but they also haven't picked up like any huge wins, right? The highest ranked opponent they've beaten so far is Ole Miss, who's rated 20th on KenPom, and they took them into overtime at home. So I don't know what to make of them right now. Like they've lost to Kentucky, Auburn, and Tennessee, which is like a murderer's row in the SEC. But then like your only wins so far are South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, and South Carolina again. So like what do you do with that? So this is going to be a game that kind of tells us what Mississippi State is, I think.
Right. They've done exactly what you would expect them to do so far. And now we go find out, hey, maybe Missouri's just better than they are.
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Let's kind of go rapid fire through some of these questions. I did see, by the way, somebody asked Drew if we shared a room, if there would be party poppers. It feels like we're getting into like a different show. I don't know if I want to go there. Jason wants to know, I don't want KU to win games, but could they stop losing so the biggest non-con win stops losing its shot? Like, there is a little truth. I mean, look, because of the name, because of the preseason expectations, Kansas is still 11th in the poll, which seems a little weird to me. They're still up, I think, top 15 in the net. So it's not like they're hurting Missouri's resume, but like, you don't want Kansas to end up 6th in the Big 12 and go, hey, remember that like generational win? Yeah, it was just kind of okay.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like Kansas is really hanging its hat on the win against Michigan State and against Duke early in the season,
which are pretty good things to hang your hat on.
Yeah, absolutely. But since then, they are 8-5 since the win against Duke. So, like, just very clearly not the same team. I think that they've kind of been figured out a little. The transfers haven't paid off as well as they were hoping. So, like you said, like it's not looking great. You don't want them to slip too far. They're going to make the tournament, obviously, but it maybe isn't as glamorous of a number 1 win as it previously was for Missouri.
Yeah, Sean wants to know, compare Gates' system to Mike Anderson's system, which one wins more consistently? Well, like I obviously we don't know yet, but I will say you cannot win more consistently than Mike Anderson won as a college basketball coach. He never had a losing season, ever. He was never under 500. So like he always won. Now he didn't win at an elite level enough, which is why he never became a coaching superstar maybe. But when Mike's system, here was the thing about Mike. When his system worked, man, it was unbelievable. But when it didn't, like there just wasn't really a plan B. It was, hey, if we can do this and you let us play the way we want to play, we are not only going to beat you, we are going to beat you bad, and it's going to be really fun to watch. But if you ran into a team that could take away what they wanted to do, it was, it was a pretty big struggle. And they struggled a lot on the road when the whistles weren't as kind to them as they were in Columbia. But I loved watching Mike's teams play. I think there are some similarities to Gates' system, but I think I don't want this to sound like disrespectful to Mike, but Dennis's seems like more of a system that can work with a few different guys, whereas Mike's was just a very tunnel vision type thing. Like if you had the right guys and it was working, it was amazing. But if you didn't,
I got you. I don't have enough Mike Anderson knowledge to make a comparison, but
it's I see the similarities though. Like it's fast, it's fun to watch, it's built on athleticism. So I do see the comps, and I do think the best comparison. I actually talked about this on the radio this morning. The best comparison for this team is the 2008-2009 team that did win 30 and go to the Elite Eight. Mike wants to know, does Grill have a chance to be drafted? Drew, I know nothing about the NBA. I'll say this. He's not a freshman, and he's not from Europe, so my initial reaction is no, based on those few things.
I haven't seen his name out there. He hadn't really been getting any buzz. But if you keep shooting 50% as many times as he does, like somebody's gonna take him. Not necessarily in the draft, but he'll get his shot somewhere. So
go G League and
G League, kind of the Sean East route where you play on a summer league team, something like that. So if he keeps shooting at this level, I think he'll make it to the pros.
Hey, real quick before we get to the Magic Man's question, want to shout out both Mitchell and Andrew for the super chats. Appreciate you guys being here and helping out the show. Mitchell has funded the confetti cannon, and he's paid for tax. So like, there's no excuse not to at some point have a confetti cannon.
Okay, I'm on it.
What I really want is for you to pack it in your bag and take it to Thompson Bowling Arena. And if Missouri wins, like you just shoot it off in the live show from the middle of Tennessee's arena. I don't think that would go over very well.
No, that's the thing. Y'all are trying to get me in trouble. We're bringing it into the arena.
I mean, this is the clear goal. Right? Absolutely. I also want to know if a confetti cannon like trips the security at TSA. Would you get in trouble?
Yeah, I bet it would.
If it doesn't, they have to stop calling. That's a rule. If you can get it through security, they have to stop calling it a cannon. Billy, excellent suggestion. Bring it to Nashville for the SEC tournament. You're driving.
There you go. Okay. See that one's more doable, I think.
Okay, cool. All right. So there will be at least one there. And Andrew is a sucker for a full court press. The good teams knew how to break it. So he's talking about Anderson's system. I'll say this. I was told a quote from a certainly very prominent Missouri coach or basketball coach in Missouri history. I was not given this quote straight from said coach, but it was passed on to me that when Nolan Richardson used to run the same system at Arkansas, said Missouri coach may have sometimes referred to it as 40 minutes of layups because all you had to do was get the ball to the middle of the floor and you were going to get the layup. Now, the ironic thing is, said coach struggled against that system a couple times, most specifically in a 52-point loss. So like it was way easier said than done. But I agree. Mike's teams were fun as hell to watch. All right. So we'll go back to Magic Man. Where does Mizzou basketball rank in NIL funding compared to other teams? It's a good question. My initial reaction is I would assume probably below Kentucky, because anytime there's a question about where does anybody in the SEC rank in basketball, I assume Kentucky is always at the top if it involves money.
That's very fair. What I think will be interesting moving forward after this season is the revenue sharing, right? Because everybody has a set amount at $20 million or whatever it is, and the schools get to decide how to split it up. So I think that some teams.
So, like, does Kentucky give half that to basketball?
Like, that's the question. So that's kind of what I'm curious to see, and I don't know how public those records are going to be, but like it is going to be the school. So hopefully we can get some more info on that.
Right. And to be clear, like that's not going to eliminate NIL. NIL is still going to exist. It's going to be in addition to the revenue sharing. But Drew's right. Like, the school can make that determination. Missouri's made it very clear they are all in on football. My guess is the split at Missouri would be something like 7. And this is a guess. Nobody has told me this. I've asked Laird Veach this exact question and he didn't answer it. But my guess would be, 70% football, 20% men's basketball, 10% everything else.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, if you're at a place like Kentucky or maybe at Arkansas, does that number look a little more like 60-30-10, or at Kentucky 30-60-10, maybe,
right.
It'll be interesting to see. Jason Franken, honest question, why is KU ranked higher than Mizzou? It's all preseason, right?
Yeah, it has to be. Mostly, like, they were a number one team. And like I said, they beat Michigan State and Duke early in the year. But yeah, great question. I would not have them as high as they are right now.
So Kansas is 8th in the net. I just looked at it. They're 4-4 against quad one. Missouri is 3-4 against quad one. One of those being Kansas. Kansas is 3-1 against quad two. Missouri's 3-0. So you're talking about 7-5 versus 6-4. Missouri beat Kansas. Yeah, I don't really know. But again, here's what we were talking about earlier. Missouri's road neutral record 1-4.
Yeah.
Kansas's road neutral record 5-3. It's 3 more games. They went out and played Michigan State and Duke. Now, I'm not saying Missouri had to play Michigan State and Duke, but just play somebody in another arena. But I think it's mostly preseason expectations. Like, I really don't believe that the net rankings and these computer things, it's not about the name of the program. If you're good enough, a computer doesn't care what your name is. But I think the only reason I can figure out KU's 15 spots above Missouri is what people thought they were going to be before the year.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Like, and also it's just like it's Bill Self. Like, people don't know that he can kind of turn things around, I think. So I don't think they're ready to pull the rug out from under them, right? They don't there's still some belief that they're still going to be Kansas at the end of the day, but recently has not been the case.
Right, but see, that's the problem to me. We are over halfway through the season. Like, they may end up being I don't know, maybe they win the national title. Maybe they end up being the best team in the country. But right now, there is no metric by which that is the number 8 team in America.
Yeah. Well, net ranking, but
well, fair. No metric that makes sense. Migrating Coconuts is asking if the first game at Memphis does not count in terms of the scheduling. No, it counts. It's just, it was that, and then what was the next road game at? Was the next road game Auburn?
Bragging rights. I mean, true road game
was
Auburn.
Neutral.
Yeah.
Neutral. Yeah.
But
the next true road game was Auburn. So there's the party popper question. Jason, we see the question. We're not commenting on the question, but we see it. Can this team compete for a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament?
I would say, yeah, that's within the realm of possibilities. We've talked about what the ceiling for this team is. And I think I said it was 12-6 in the SEC. You said it was 13-5, something like that. And I think those kind of records absolutely would make you a 4 seed. And where they are now, that's pretty doable, I think.
Yeah, 12-6, 13-5 is not easy. But if they get there, I think that's good enough for a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. Again, I said I think that's kind of best case scenario. That involves probably winning one of the road games coming up. It involves winning 2 out of 3 against A&M, Kentucky, and Alabama at home. So it's not easy, but it is within the realm. I don't feel like I'm being a homer saying it's possible for it to happen.
Yeah. And most places have them as a 7 seed right now. So they got a little ways to go to move up, but they're very much in play. They're in the right direction.
I think the trend has been recently up to a 6, and I haven't looked at any of the projections since the Ole Miss game because honestly, it doesn't matter, dude. We have 11 games left to go in the regular season. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks they are on January 27th. I mean, they could go 3-8 or 8-3 and be anywhere from a 4 to, oh my God, are we even going to make this thing? So, we'll see where it ends up. But I don't know. Anything else that you want to hit on before we get out of here?
Not that I can think of. We're gonna have some stuff.
What are you going to do with yourself, man? No midweek game.
Good question. So I'm gonna have a story out tomorrow that is not a game preview like you're used to seeing on Tuesday. And then I'll have a story out on Wednesday. It'll be kind of a feature-y kind of deal. And then regular column Thursday, and then we're back to it Friday with Media Day potentially.
All right, let's finish up with Andrew's question that he just posted. This is a riff on an old classic that people used to like to ask me on the site and say, if I put a gun to your head and then ask me a question, I'm like, why would you do that? Like, it's not this serious. Like, this is nobody's ever going to put a gun to my head and say, what's Mizzou's record going to be? But party popper to your head, what's Mizzou's conference record the rest of the way? So 11 games, you got to make a call today. What do you say?
11 games. I'll go 10-8.
10-8 overall. So they are, from here on out, though, they're 5-6?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to, without going through it game by game, I'm going to go 6-5 the rest of the way and say they finish 11-7.
Okay. Yeah. Shoot.
Which is, I think, puts them in the, probably not in the top 4. Like, probably losing a tiebreaker and being like the 5-6 seed would be my guess at 11-7.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So that feels good to me. That feels about right. But again, I didn't look through every game. I just threw a number out off the top of my head, and I wanted to go one better than you because I wanted people to think, "Hey, Gabe's the nice guy. He's the positive one."
Always.
Forget Drew. He hates us. He won't even buy He won't even buy cannons for the show. So anyway, guys, appreciate you hanging out. We meant to not go a full hour. We went almost a full hour anyway because this is just what we do on Monday nights, man. We hang out and talk Mizzou basketball. So appreciate you joining us. Before you leave, hit the like button, share the channel, or subscribe to the channel, share the show with other people. If you're listening on the podcast, leave a nice review, say good things on social media. And regardless of where you're listening to us, get in touch with our buddy James Carlton, State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. If you live in Missouri or Illinois, he's going to take care of all your insurance needs. At the very least, give James a call, get a quote, tell him you heard about it on Power Mizzou, and he's going to donate $25 to Mizzou's NIL fund. CarltonInsurance.net, Facebook.com/Carlton Insurance. Phone number is 314-961-4800. Tell him you need Canon insurance for the Power Mizzou show at the SEC tournament. So appreciate you guys listening. Talk to you next time.